Hi, I'm Eric Siegel with ericstrains.com, and this is episode 1 of Eric's Trains on the Road. Alright, so it is late October 2016. Now, originally the first episode of Eric's Trains on the Road was supposed to be about my trip up to Concord, North Carolina to visit Lionel back in June, but I am still editing that, and meanwhile, York has crept up on me, and so right now I'm in a hotel room up in York, Pennsylvania for the fall TCA York train meet, which of course is the mother of all train shows. And so it's the end of the second day here in York, and I wanted to show you some of the stuff I picked up so far. Alright, so the first thing I want to show you is something that's actually pretty old. It goes back to the post-war days. And this is kind of personal for me because I had one of these when I was a kid, although mine didn't work. So here's what it is. This is called the Noma Town Station, and it was made by a company called Noma out of New York back in the post-war days. My dad had one of these when he was a kid, and then when I inherited his set in the early 90s, this was part of the set. Except by that time, the station had stopped working. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, on the inside, there is a miniature record player, and it's powered by 2 D-cell batteries, and when you activate it, it actually activates this record player, this tiny little record, and it plays a passenger station announcement sequence. It's really cool. And, you know, these are not exceptionally rare. You can find them on eBay, but most of the time, the record playing mechanism has long since stopped working or is missing altogether. But this one actually works, and it's pretty cool. Now, some of you younger kids out there, you may not even know what a record player is, but before the advent of digital music like iTunes and so forth, or CDs or even cassettes, we had these things called records, and they were discs made of vinyl, originally wax, but then later on vinyl. And they had grooves on them that would be read by a stylus, and that would read the music and amplify it into a amplification system. And that's what this had. So if you open this thing up, there's a tiny little record that's maybe about 2 or 3 inches in diameter, and it contains the sound effects for the station. Pretty cool. And like I said, I can't believe this thing actually works. So, without further ado, I'm going to press the button up here in the clock tower, and that will activate the record playing sequence, and you will hear the passenger station announcements. And there you go. Pure analog goodness. Really cool. You don't find too many of these where the record player actually still works. And for that reason, there's actually a guy that I saw on YouTube who makes a digital drop-in replacement. He has sampled the sounds digitally and put them on a chip and put a sound system on it, and you can put them in the station, and that way you can get these things working again even if you don't have the original record player. But it's really cool to get one that still works like it originally did. Now, from what I understand, there were several different station announcement sequences that could be in these things, but the one that's in this one, which is the Pennsylvania Broadway Limited version, is actually the one that was in the station that I had when I was a kid. I still have that station, by the way, it just doesn't work. Now, the reason I know it's the same sound sequence is that even though it didn't work, it still had the little record in there, and when I was a kid, I managed to play the record, although it was not at the correct speed, and I could hear what was on the record. I just could never get the mechanism working again. But now I've got one that actually works, and I picked this up today for 75 bucks. Really good deal, and it actually came in the original box. So if you look at the box, you can see the advertising there where they kind of tell kids all about what the station will do. And you got to understand that back in the post-war days, this is pretty cool stuff. I mean, they didn't have digital anything. And so to be able to press a button on the top of the tower and get sounds to come out of it, that was a big deal. So there you go, the Noma Town Station. Now this year at York, I'm really not buying a lot of trains. I'm actually buying a lot of smaller things like accessories and scenery materials and stuff like that. But one of the few trains I've picked up so far, or train items, is a boxcar. This is the MTH Fall York boxcar. Every time there's a York show, and there are 2 shows per year, one in the spring, one in the fall, MTH puts out a special car just for the show. And here is the Fall York car, and you can see on the side there's a picture of the 2017 Volume 1 catalog that MTH just came out with. And I actually got one of those too, so let me reach into my grab bag here. Here we go. So here is the brand new 2017 Volume 1 MTH catalog. I picked up one of those as well. You know, whenever I'm at York, I tend to spend most of my time in the Orange Hall, which is the dealer's hall. And so while I was there, I stopped by the Ross Custom Switches booth, and I got a new 072 switch. There it is. This is to replace a switch that's on my layout right now, but is broken, and this is going to be dropped in its place. I've really taken quite a liking to these Ross switches. They're very well made, and they're made right here in the USA. You can't beat that. And then also at the Ross booth, I picked up a Gargraves track bumper. I got one of these last year, and I liked it so much that I got another one. They look great, and these are also made in the USA. And then I also picked up a DZ1000 switch motor. This is to replace the switch motor on a Ross switch that is currently installed on my layout, but I accidentally broke the switch motor, and so I had to buy a replacement. Directly across from the Ross booth is the O-Gauge Railroading Magazine booth, and I picked up a couple things there. First up, I got Volume 13 of Great Layout Adventures on Blu-ray, so I can't wait to watch that when I get home. And then I got a book. I got Tower City Trains, and this is a picture book of the layout of Bill Bramlage. Now, if you don't know who Bill Bramlage is, you probably haven't been in this hobby long enough. Bill lives in Ohio, and he has one of the most magnificent O-Gauge layouts in the country, period. Better than mine, way better than mine. And I've always wanted to meet Bill because one of the biggest influences on me when I started building my layout was Bill Bramlage, because I watched a lot of the videos of his layout, and actually layouts. He's had 2 layouts over the years. And I've also read a lot of his articles in OGR magazine. And so this is a book that just has pictures of his magnificent layout. And they're stunning, high quality pictures. It doesn't get any better than this. And Bill was on hand, and he autographed the book to me, which was really special. You know, whenever I go to York, there are always people walking up to me wanting to shake my hand and say, "Oh, I've always wanted to meet you. I love the videos," and so forth. Well, for me, there are people at York that I want to meet and say the same thing to, and Bill Bramlage is one of those people. I've always wanted to meet him. He's kind of a hero of mine, and he has been a big influence on the design on my layout and the way that I do things. So for those of you who are looking to start a layout, especially, if you're looking for ideas, check out the videos of Bill Bramlage's layout, check out this book, and check out his articles in OGR magazine. You will find tons of great ideas. Okay, it is now 3 days later. York is over, and as you can see, I am no longer on the road. I'm back home. I had wanted to finish this video up on the road in my hotel room. I didn't have time to do that in York, and then I tried to finish it up last night at my hotel in Bristol, Virginia, while I was driving back down here. But the people in the room next to me, I guess they really didn't care to hear me doing take after take of Eric's Trains videos, and so I had to stop. So now I'm back home, so we'll pick up where we left off, and I'll show you the rest of the stuff that I picked up while I was up at York. So, like I said, I spent most of my time in the Orange Hall, and another booth I stopped by was the Scenic Express booth to pick up some scenery supplies. So I grabbed a couple bottles of Woodland Scenic's Realistic Water, and of course you don't have to go to York to get this, but I needed it, it was there, so I picked it up. And I'm going to use this to add some more water to the creek here in the main room, and also hopefully start adding water to the lake in the Carolina room in the near future. Now it's funny, anytime I mention adding water to the layout, the first question I get inevitably is, are you going to add real water? And the answer was always the same: no. Under no circumstances would I ever use real water on my layout or recommend that anybody use real water on their layout. And the reason is simple. Real water is a gigantic headache, and it's just not worth it. First of all, you have to worry about leaks. You know, a leak on your layout could be a disastrous thing. And then secondly, you know, when water sits around, it tends to get really nasty and dirty, and it requires a lot of upkeep to keep it clean. If you don't believe me, just ask anybody who owns a swimming pool. It's a giant headache, and it's just not worth it. I mean, the payoff is not enough to justify using real water, in my opinion. And so I think it's better off to just use some sort of water substitute like this. You don't have to use this. There are lots of materials out there you can use as a stand-in for water, but I would recommend against using real water. The only exception to that is if you have a layout that is being run by an organization that is so big and so well funded and has so many resources that it can afford to have that headache. An example of that is the Miniature Wonderland layout over in Germany. I've heard that they have real water on their layout, but they can do it because that is run by a big organization and they can afford all of the headaches that go with having real water. But for the average person like me or most people watching this video, it's just not worth it. So moving on, I also picked up some of these briar patch clusters from the Scenic Express booth. These are made by a place called Bill Langford's Studio, and I've really come to like the stuff that this guy puts out. I've got some of these briar patches behind me actually, and I really like them, so I bought some more. They're not exactly cheap, they're 10 bucks a pop, but they're very, very nice and they look great. And then also from Bill Langford Studios, I got these wild bushes, a bag of wild bushes. It's 13 bucks. This is sort of an experiment. You know, what I do when it comes to scenery supplies is I'll buy one, I'll try it on the layout, and then if I like it, I'll buy some more. So with these wild bushes, what I'm hoping to do is to be able to put some overgrowth around the creek here in the main room. So this will go on the banks of the creek and hopefully it'll look good. If it does, I will buy more. If not, I'll take it off and put it somewhere else on the layout. Something else I got as an experiment is this pack of bushes made by Martin Welberg. And there are 10 little bushes in here. And I'm going to put these around the switch tower area on the layout for some decoration. And again, if I like them, I'll buy more. And if not, you know, well, I didn't waste too much money. It's 12 bucks for a pack of 10. Not exactly cheap, but nice scenery supplies are never cheap. I also stopped by the JT's Mega Steam booth. He makes that great smoke fluid that I like to use. And I tried a new flavor, and this one's appropriate for this time of year. I got pumpkin pie, and it smells like a pumpkin pie. So I'm going to try that out, and then while I was there, I also picked up some additional JT's Mega Steam needlepoint dispensers. These are great for dispensing smoke fluid, and I would highly recommend them. It's a lot cleaner. It's nowhere near as messy as trying to use a dropper or a regular squirt bottle on your engine, because a lot of times when you use those devices, you end up getting smoke fluid all over the engine too. Also, while I was in the Orange Hall, I met up with Derrick Thomas. Derrick Thomas is the guy who does the Notch 6 podcasts that a lot of us listen to. I've been on Notch 6 before, and Derrick's a great guy, and it was great to see him. I finally got to meet him face to face. Great guy. Anyway, Derrick just wrote a book, and it's the story of Madison Hardware. Madison Hardware is one of the most famous Lionel stores ever. They're not around anymore. They used to be in Manhattan, and back in the post-war days especially, they were the Lionel store. They were incredible. It's a legendary store, and it's great that he wrote a book about it. And as you can see, if I open it up, you can see that Derrick signed it to me, which was really nice. And I can't wait to read this. It's going to be great. I'm going to be doing some more work with Derrick in the future, probably next year, so keep an eye out for that. As many of you know, I have a small loop of ON30 track in the Colorado room to run a tourist excursion train. And so I've been wanting to get a new engine and a new passenger car for that line. So while I was in the Orange Hall, I stopped by the Bachmann booth because Bachmann makes the ON30 trains that I buy. and I asked them where I could buy some, and they directed me over to the Star Hobbies booth in the Orange Hall. And so I picked up an engine that I've been eyeing for a while. This is the ON30 Whitcomb switcher by Bachmann. Really nice. And I also bought the sound card for it. I've already installed it, so this thing is good to go. It's really nice. It's all metal. It has a great weight to it. And I will be running this at the open house this coming Saturday. So that'll be a lot of fun. And also at Star Hobbies, I picked up an olive coach car in ON30. I've already got the maroon cars. I've got 3 of the maroon cars. They look exactly like this, except they're maroon. But I wanted to add a little variety to the train, so I also picked up one of the olive-colored cars. This one was about 35 bucks, and the Whitcomb switcher was about $2.25, which was a good price. Now, there was another booth in the Orange Hall that I visited where I didn't buy anything, but I was really impressed with their product, and I may buy it at some point in the future. And it was the booth for these guys, Mayan Customizable Benchwork. And what they do is they sell these kits that allow you to build the benchwork for a modular layout really easily. It's all prefabricated, and basically all you do is screw it together and you've got instant benchwork for a layout. It is really, really cool. And the next time I build a layout, I'm going to give these guys some serious consideration because the prices really are not that bad. You know, I've said this before, this layout is not going to last forever. Eventually, once my kid is off to college and it's just my wife and I, we will probably move into a different house and I will have to dismantle this layout and build a new one, a better one. And when I do that, I am going to seriously consider building it with this Mayan benchwork system. It's really cool, and like I said, the prices are actually very reasonable. Alright, so I saved the best for last. I finally bought my first set of crossing signals for the layout. And here they are. I bought these from the NJ International booth, and these were actually the last ones he had on hand, although he's got more back at his home base. And I bought a whole kit. For 200 bucks, you get the crossing signals and all of the hardware needed to activate them when the train passes. I can't wait to get these up and running on the layout. I've been wanting to add crossing signals for the longest time, and so now I can finally get started. It's not the easiest thing in the world to find crossing signals. I wanted to use Z-Stuff, but he's been out of stock for a long time, and so I was really happy to see these in stock with NJ International, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to like these, and assuming I do, I'm going to be buying many more of these from him in the near future. And once I get these installed, I'll do a video on it so you can see them in action, but I am really excited about these. Alright, that about wraps it up in terms of the stuff I picked up at York. But you know, the real reason I went to York this year was just to see everybody. I get to meet a lot of fans of the videos, which is always great. And then I also get to meet a lot of the people that make the stuff I buy. So it's always fun to talk to the guys from Lionel and Atlas and MTH and the magazine CTT and OGR and everybody else. It's just a whole lot of fun. And if you've never been to York before, you really need to check it out. Like I said, there are 2 shows per year, one in the spring and one in the fall. They are 3 days long each. Now, to go to the first 2 days of the show, you do have to be a TCA member, Train Collectors Association. However, if you're not a member of the TCA and you still want to check out York, you can go to the 3rd day now as a guest. You don't have to be a TCA member to attend the 3rd day of the show. But in my opinion, the first 2 days are actually better than the 3rd day. So I would recommend becoming a TCA member and then checking out York. I guarantee you'll enjoy it. But anyway, that's it for now. I'm Eric Siegel, and I'll see you next time.